Close your eyes for just a moment. Envision in your mind's eye a pharmacist. What does a pharmacist do? What activities fill up their day? What do we wear? How do you reach a pharmacist? How do you call a pharmacist? What advice can your pharmacist give you? How do you know that you need to ask your pharmacist a question? The fact of the matter is that I don't think many people know what it is that pharmacists do and what unique skill sets we bring to the entire healthcare equation. Pharmacists are not just one thing. Pharmacists can specialize in everything from ambulatory care to cardiology to compounding, critical care, geriatrics, infectious disease, nutrition support, oncology. The list goes on and on and on of the multiple practice sites that pharmacists can have. Some pharmacists are good at saving your life when your life is in immediate danger. Other pharmacists are helpful at coaching you on how to prevent diseases. Other pharmacists are going to be amazing in helping you to streamline your medications. Other pharmacists are pharmacists that you can trust in your most critical of needs. Maybe when you've been diagnosed with cancer and you really need to know that the person on the other side of that medication bag that's dripping into your arm took care to be sure that the right drug was at the right concentration, is being infused at the correct speed, and is monitoring for adverse effects. Pharmacists live a lot of lives, and I'm honored to call myself a pharmacist and to be a part of such a noble profession that over time has shifted to have a predominantly female workforce. Along the way, I've met a lot of amazing pharmacist colleagues, and today I'm going to be interviewing two of them. First up is Lara Zakaria. She is not only a functional medicine pharmacist, but also a nutritionist who can help you to get to the root cause of what is actually wrong. Not just, oh, you have diabetes, here's some insulin, but why do you have diabetes? What's going on with your blood sugar? Is this a pancreas problem? Is it a thyroid problem? Is it maybe a cardiovascular problem where you're not absorbing any of the sugars out of your bloodstream? After that, I will be talking to Connie Grauds. Connie is a pharmacist who changed my life forever when she asked me a critical question at a time when I really needed to hear it. Let's get to the show. Welcome to the Lindsey Elmore Show, a podcast that helps you find fulfillment amidst chaos. On this show, I interview thought leaders, doctors, creatives, spiritual gurus, and game changers who inspire you to pursue your dreams, overcome obstacles, and leave your mark. Lara Zakaria is a functional pharmacist, clinical nutritionist, and virtual entrepreneur based in New York City. She is a graduate of Rutgers University and spent 20 years in retail pharmacy practice. After developing an interest in nutrition, she earned a master's in science in nutrition from the University of Bridgeport. Lara's clinical practice is within a multidisciplinary functional medicine clinic, and she supervises a professional mentorship program under the medical directorship of Dr. Kara Fitzgerald. Lara is also co-owner of Pharmacy Evolutions, a professional pharmacy training and mentorship program focused on helping pharmacists evolve their professional and business practices to stay competitive in an ever-changing market. Lara is also an adjunct professor of nutritional biochemistry at the Nutrition Institute at the University of Bridgeport and a guest instructor for functional medicine at Lee Com College of Pharmacy. She is a certified nutrition specialist and credentialed in functional medicine as an Institute for Functional Medicine certified practitioner. Lara is passionate about prevention and reversal of metabolic and autoimmune diseases and works with pharmacy professionals to leverage their unique expertise in medication management, drug-drug and drug-nutrient interactions, and genomics to optimize patient care and nutritional programs. She also is a good friend of mine. I'm so excited to talk to you today, Lara. Thank you for being on the Lindsey Elmore Show.
Well, Lindsey, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
I'm so excited to talk to you today because I think that people have absolutely zero clue what pharmacists do. And so what do you think the average person's perception of what does a pharmacist do?
I think the average person thinks that pharmacists sit on the phone, count, and maybe like type away on a computer. And I think that they maybe have an idea that we know about the drugs, but I often hear people comment like, "Oh, I didn't know you knew about that," or "I don't know if you know the answer to this," but right. And so when we tend to counsel and we end up counseling on the disease state itself, and we show a little bit of understanding about maybe more complex processes, or maybe we have a little bit more ability to explain some things. Maybe we have a little bit more time to do so than maybe their doctor did at their visit. I often hear feedback like, "Wow, you guys are so smart. I didn't know you knew that," or "I didn't know that you would have an answer for that for me." So I think if I could educate people on what we do and what we're really good at, within our training, we're being trained on disease states, we're being trained on lab assessment, we're being trained to understand not just the guidelines and what we're supposed to be doing in terms of medication. Our training actually is much broader than that, because in order to know where medication fits in to a care plan, you have to know what the alternatives are, what the options are, what the risks are, and when they're appropriate to use and when they're contraindicated. So it's complex.
It's really complex what pharmacists can do. And I agree with you. I think most people think of pharmacists as having a very robotic job where the robot goes in, you get this order from a physician without even like thinking about the end user, the patient, that we just mindlessly count and fill a bottle and then bill insurance and fight with insurance companies all day. I think, or...
Unfortunately, that is what we do, right? That has been what our job has been reduced to. Our education hasn't changed. In fact, it's increased. 20, 25 years ago, you can get 5 years and a bachelor's to become a pharmacist, and you can become a registered pharmacist. Then they changed everything over and the training became more clinical. And ever since 2003, you have to now have a doctorate of pharmacy in order to practice, in order to qualify as a registered pharmacist. You're grandfathered in if you have a bachelor's. So there are pharmacists that are still practicing that have a bachelor's. But the idea was to shift us over into a clinical role so that we can assist doctors, nurse practitioners, PAs, etc., in making clinical decisions about how to leverage and utilize medications in their plans. What didn't change, however, in most states, pharmacists don't have provider status, meaning that they're still relegated to the dispensing role. And that is why the majority of people see us in that position that you just described, where all we're doing is dealing with the insurance company, dealing with billing, and dealing with dispensing. There's been sort of a revolution in terms of getting pharmacists to get provider status. In a lot of states, there's active, advocacy and to change the legislation to expand it, and we're seeing slowly some states start to shift that over. Small steps towards that. For example, I believe it was Texas that most recently gave pharmacists the authority to prescribe for oral contraceptives, for example. In many states, you can also have a collaborative practice agreement with a physician, and that gives you more authority to manage a certain disease state or to manage a certain patient on behalf of the physician. And this is crucial, particularly in areas that don't have as much access to primary care or healthcare providers. So the folks that are in lower socioeconomic areas, in the outskirts, sort of in the boonies of the United States that don't typically have a lot of access can really leverage a pharmacist in those places, because often there are at least pharmacies close by. And if that pharmacist can also serve as a monitoring role for chronic disease or as another primary care provider, that's tremendous. That's going to automatically increase healthcare access, which is crucial, particularly for folks with cardiovascular disease, diabetes, kidney disease, et cetera. They really need close monitoring, and that could be really powerful.
And that's something that I know in my training. So I did my training in North Carolina, which arguably has the most progressive pharmacy practice act in the United States. And so even back when I was training, which was more than 10 years ago at this point, we had collaborative practice agreements. And part of it is because there was one brave pharmacist. Bruce Canaday was a pharmacist in North Carolina, and he wanted to start going on rounds with physicians, and he wanted to start managing medications and actually saying hey guys, no, a gram of this medication 3 times a day in an 80-year-old woman with a creatinine clearance of 15 is dangerous. And so he started doing it. And the North Carolina board came and sat him down and said, no, you can't do those things. You have to be in the pharmacy dispensing medications. And he goes, no, I don't. And they said, well, yes, you do. And so he, with just chutzpah, allowed his license to expire and continued going on rounds, actively managing medications. They cut off his key badge entry to the pharmacy, so he could not enter he wasn't a pharmacist anymore. And the North Carolina board was like, no, you can't do this. And he was like, I am employed. I'm just not a licensed pharmacist. They want me to do this. And they changed the Pharmacy Practice Act of North Carolina. He said, listen, if you're defining pharmacy as me putting a pill into a jar and handing it to someone, that is not my job role. I don't do these things. I do these other things. And so that was step 1 in the evolving Pharmacy Practice Act in North Carolina. And so when I was training, the way that I see pharmacists fitting so well into the equation is physicians are excellent diagnosticians. Yep. They can figure out what is wrong with the patient. Nurses are excellent in monitoring and being sure that everything is kept stable, especially in critically ill patients. Nurses are really in it to win it. Mm-hmm. Pharmacists can sit down and look at a medication list that can be 3 drugs, or in one of my patients, 57 drugs. She came in and they were like, I think we need a pharmacist to reconcile all these medications. She had a garbage bag full of medications. And I could sit down and honestly, relatively quickly, without flexing that many brain cells, just do it. And just understand that okay, here's what we need to do with this medication routine to get this patient out of she was completely cathartic just because she was paralyzed from all the meds. Yeah. So what do you do that is so much different than what people perceive pharmacists to do? So
let me first explain what functional medicine is.
Okay, let's start there. What the heck is functional medicine?
What the heck is functional medicine? Functional medicine is essentially, I think of it as a filter or a lens with which we view medicine. That could be as a physician, that could be as a nurse, a PA, a pharmacist, a physical therapist, an optometrist. Anybody in the healthcare field can use functional medicine. It's not a new kind of medicine. What it is instead is a framework that helps us to organize ourselves around what's happening with a particular case and gives us the flexibility to see the case for its complexity, for the interplay of the various pieces. So what does that mean? When somebody has high cholesterol, for example, the way we were trained conventionally was we see high cholesterol, that means they're making too much cholesterol, that means we need to lower their cholesterol in order to reduce their risk of cardiovascular disease. From a functional perspective, okay, they're making too much cholesterol. Why are they making too much cholesterol? Let's back up and think about what the metabolic process is. What are the things that make somebody increase cholesterol production? Now I'm thinking, is their thyroid functioning optimally? And if their thyroid isn't functioning optimally, is the issue due to a hormonal imbalance? Is the issue due to an adrenal imbalance? Is the issue possibly due to an autoimmune condition, right? Or is there an insulin dysregulation issue? Are they having trouble maintaining proper blood sugar balance? And is that impacting the way that their body is then metabolizing their fats and causing their cholesterol to go up? So rather than just looking at it as one potential risk, we're actually backing up and looking a little bit more upstream to understand why it's broken and then trying to fix that. So that's, quick little intro to what functional medicine is. As a pharmacist, there's a couple different angles to view this. You gave a great example before. You've got somebody who's got a list of medications. As a pharmacist, you're going to come in, you're going to reconcile those medications. One, are they being prescribed properly in this patient, considering all the factors? Are these the proper medications for this person at the right dosages and the right frequencies? Two, are there any medications that are not necessary or that could be either removed or replaced by something that could be superior? And three, the functional part, are there opportunities for me to come in with nutritional interventions, herbal interventions, homeopathic interventions that might, one, offset some of the side effects that they might be experiencing due to these medications, relieve the need for some of these medications, or support that condition kind of in a more holistic way. Mm-hmm. So a couple of examples. Somebody that's been taking a PPI, a proton pump inhibitor, which is an acid blocker, for a really long time, might start seeing deficiencies in some B vitamins, particularly folate, B12. You might also see depletions in magnesium. Does that person need to be supplemented, for example, with magnesium? And then what kind of magnesium? That's one example. Another example, somebody that might have...
Or were they just that person that needed a PPI for 3 days while they were in the intensive care unit 6 years ago?
Accurate.
And yes.
They just kept
and they just were
it.
that is the problem when you don't take a look at medication lists on the regular basis and go, why are you using all of these things? Yeah. Like, what is the purpose? Yeah. And I remember educating my audience at one point in time and saying... Because I was telling them a story and I was like, and then I just refused to fill the medication. And people were like, you can refuse to fill medications as a pharmacist? And I'm like, actually, listen. Yeah, I'm like, that's actually my job. And I told them, I was like, listen to me. If a pharmacist refuses to fill your medication, they are doing it for an extraordinarily good reason.
Can you repeat that?
If a pharmacist refuses to fill your medication, they are doing it for an extraordinarily good reason. Either you don't need it, or it is going to be dangerous in you. As we saw with the Netflix series, The Pharmacist, Dan Schneider, he's like, if I do this, you will die.
Yep.
And so... Yes, pharmacist, it's our purpose to say, is this medicine the actual right one? And do you need it? And so...
I'm so glad you brought that up because I want to come back to that.
Yeah.
But I just want to make one more...
Okay, tell us. I totally interrupted
example.
You. Yes.
No, great. You made a great point, but I just want to make one more example. And I'm coming right back to that Pharmacist documentary. Another place that pharmacists can help educate are in lifestyle medicine.
Oh my gosh, right?
So you got somebody that has hypertension. You walk in, you see that they're on hypertension medication. Maybe their doctor had to add a new hypertension medication. Maybe they had to change the dosage. And it's not uncommon to have to be on 3 different antihypertensives to get your blood pressure under control. Now, just because it's not that common and not uncommon doesn't mean that it's right, because I don't know how many people realize, but sleep and weight actually have the most significant impact on reducing your blood pressure. Mm-hmm. So if you're having trouble reducing your blood pressure, one thing that can help is losing weight, maintaining good, and I don't just mean losing weight like, doing it the right way, making sure that you're also building muscle, making sure that your body composition is good, because there is such a thing as skinny fat, which essentially means that you look skinny, you weigh the right amount, but you're not necessarily, you don't have the right body composition. So there is such a thing as that. So having the right body composition and sleep. The majority of people that have hypertension have some sort of sleep disorder. It may not be as bad as apnea. It could just be disordered sleeping, not sleeping enough, disrupted sleeping, insomnia. So those two pieces in and of themselves, if we can intervene, and that doesn't mean intervene by just throwing sleep medication at it, but really exploring what somebody's habits are, really making sure that we're supporting them with the proper diet and lifestyle recommendations to help improve those underlying pieces. It's not uncommon to drop 10 points in blood pressure by just making those interventions, right? And so that's a big piece I think pharmacists can counsel on. And if we're educated on it, then we can feel more confident and we can step in and counsel. And now that's not always part of our conventional pharmacy training, and that's where the added functional medicine training comes in, and it could be so powerful. So I really wanted to make sure people realize that, because I don't know that that's emphasized enough.
Well, I don't think that lifestyle medicine in general is emphasized enough, because it doesn't pay the bills,
It's also inconvenient.
It's
people
so
struggle
inconvenient
to be compliant with the changes they have to make in order to be successful. Losing weight is hard. Changing your habits are hard. Changing your sleep habits, it's hard. Staying on an exercise routine, it's challenging. There's a reason that most of us make a resolution on January 1st and by January 5th have fallen off the wagon already. It's challenging, and I'm not taking away from all that. The problem is our system is not built to support people in those changes.
Yes, and our food system is also broken. So getting access to the actual nutritive foods that are critical for fixing what is broken. If we honestly, it's not hard. It's like we were on a call with a bunch of functional medicine pharmacists who aim to be entrepreneurs, because there aren't a ton of us that are self-employed pharmacists. And somebody was like, I just don't see why people are going to pay me for this. And I was like, listen to me. You can all day, every day get paid to tell people to sleep, drink more water, do your exercise, get your vitamins and minerals in line, eat mostly plants, don't stress out, meditate, do some yoga, cut out bad, unhealthy relationships. You can get paid to do that all day, every day, because even in my own life, it's hard. Yes, it's hard.
It's really challenging. We've set up a modern society that relies on convenience, right? We have to have things convenient because we do not carve out time and prioritize the need for sitting down for an hour and enjoying your lunch and not multitasking and working. Or if you do take a break, feeling guilty the entire time, I should be checking my email, right?
Yeah.
We've created that society, and I can't fix that. I want to fix that. But we have to start as healthcare providers really emphasizing those pieces, because all we're doing is throwing a Band-Aid on it and then wondering why the chronic disease epidemic keeps going up. Our guidelines have gotten tighter and tighter and stricter, and it's because it's easier to keep somebody in line when it comes to their medication than it is to keep them in line when it comes to their diet. And as a nutritionist, I acknowledge that.
Right.
It's challenging. It's hard. Right? And so we have to start thinking more like coaches. We have to start thinking a little bit more in terms of what are sustainable changes. And I think you're absolutely right. Our food system has to change. Did you know that the nutrient quality of our food has decreased by 80% since the beginning of the 20th century?
It's not shocking. It's not surprising.
If you look at they've charted it, and if you look at the graph, there's a stark drop starting in about the 50s and the 60s. And it has to do with the way that our agriculture system is set up. It's set up for efficiency, not for quality.
Yes.
And so it causes a soil depletion. The soil is depleted, it can't feed the plants. and then the plant doesn't have as much nutrient quality to it.
Well, and you lop on like gallons and gallons of herbicides and pesticides that further deplete your soil. We are seeing crops shifting not towards food and biodiversity, which is what we actually want in our food system. We see our food system shifting towards cheap soy, cheap corn, fillers, additives, and all that is doing is going to feed livestock. And so you're also getting less nutrition out of the meat that you eat because it's not getting, because
arguably that's what's making the meat unhealthy.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's not just you're getting less nutrition out of the meat, that meat has become unhealthy. So every time I see an article or I see somebody say, oh, meat's not good for you, no, it's not that the meat is not good for you. It's that what we've done to the meat has made the meat bad for us.
It's like Michael Pollan says, it's not you are what you eat. It's you are what you eat eats. You are what you eat eats. And so if the spinach that you're eating is eating completely nutrient devoid water out and there's no minerals in the earth, you're not getting any, you're not getting the nutrition out of the food.
And then to your point, then you add pesticides to that. You add herbicides to that. And that then is in your food and altering your microbiome, shifting around the balance of your good bacteria to bad bacteria. And it is unsurprising that's a word, right? Unsurprising.
It's not surprising.
It's not surprising that you then are seeing, again, an increase in chronic disease because over the last decade or so, we're making more and more connections between the impact of our microbiome with disease. And in fact, I've made this bet a lot over the last year or so, and I have yet to lose this bet. I have not had to pay out yet, but I will give you $1 if you find a disease that's not connected to the microbiome.
Everything is because it's not just the microbiome in the gut, which is I think what people typically think about, but it's the skin, it's inside your mouth, it's inside your
lungs,
yes,
it's in your reproductive organs, it's everywhere.
Inside your nose, it's everywhere.
And in fact, that microbiome is communicating with your DNA. Your microbiome is actually telling your DNA what to do. And if the microbiome is healthy, it's turning on genetic markers for health. And if your microbiome's unhealthy, it's turning off the healthy DNA signaling and it's turning on the disease markers. And so it's so much deeper than that. And then there's a third player in the conversation, which is the food that we eat. The food that you're eating sends signals and communicates with the microbiome and with your DNA to determine your outcomes. That's probably why, we haven't really confirmed this yet, but that's probably why eating whole food is so essential. You can't supplement your way to good health. Food is live. Food's phytonutrients, the phytochemicals, the parts of the food that give it color, that make it vivid, the reason that we say eat the rainbow, that's the part that's communicating with the DNA, with the microbiome. That's epigenomics, right? That's the epigenetic part that we're more and more recently starting to realize, oh, I was born with a set of genes, but those genes they don't decide my outcomes. My lifestyle decides my outcomes. Why? Because your lifestyle, what you're eating, how much of it you're eating, how often you're exercising, how well you're sleeping, how much you're managing your stress. That's what actually turns up the volume on the genetic codes for health and turns down the volume on the genetic codes for disease.
That's one of the things that I think has been so just astonishing to watch, in the spring of 2020 was there were a lot of people that no matter what, they were like, I'm still healthy. And that comprehension and understanding was so helpful for me because I was just like, I'm still healthy. I don't know about the rest of y'all. But to see such a massive amount of people go, but wait, I'm not healthy. I'm not healthy. Am I healthy? I don't know. Am I healthy? It's like, guys, can you just like your conscious language matters. It really matters. You told us you were going to take us back to Dan Schneider, the pharmacist, now the Netflix series, which if you haven't watched it, it is really excellent to demonstrate the power that one pharmacist can have in saving people's lives. And so tell us what you wanted to tell us about that.
So he is absolutely makes a great... He makes that comment that you referenced before where you said, you know, if I dispense this to you, I can literally kill you. And pharmacists take that oath very seriously. Very seriously. And I can tell you how many times folks have accused me of not wanting to dispense something for whatever reason that they had, whatever they thought, and not realizing that it's actually not my obligation to dispense the medication. It's my obligation to make sure that the right medicine goes to the right person for the right reason. And when it comes to that opioid epidemic, I don't think there is a better example of the failing of the system and not empowering pharmacists to make those decisions.
Absolutely. I mean, I got so mad. You know, we're both New Yorkers, and we got some righteous indignation. And so I remember a couple weeks ago, I was at the Met, and I was walking around and I was looking at all this like glorious art from like ancient Cyprus and ancient Greece. And then I look on the wall and it's like the Sackler family wing. And I just turned around and I was so furious. I was like, this is what death bought.
Yeah.
This is the artwork, the bullshit.
Yeah, this is on the graves
that
of
death bought.
Thousands and thousands of young people.
Absolutely. Yep. And I completely agree with you. Pharmacists take our oath to like put the right medicine in the right person for the right reason very, very seriously. I remember when I first started practicing, I was PGY1 doing my residency, and I remember getting my first order for Tylenol. And I sat there and I like did the math, and I did the math again, and I did the math again, and I did the math again. And then I was like, okay, I think I can press go. And I'm like,
Tylenol is serious.
Serious? You can die.
Tylenol is serious.
You can die.
And chronic, actually, I'm going to make this PSA. Chronic use of Tylenol not only is bad for your liver, but depletes your glutathione,
which
your
makes you sicker.
Most important antioxidant.
Yes.
And here we are popping Tylenols. Oh, it's just Tylenol. No, that is serious.
Yes.
So yeah, I get where you're coming from.
Absolutely.
It seems silly, but no, it's important.
Oh, you get your first order for fentanyl in a newborn child that's just been born, and you're like crying, and you're like, okay, check my math.
Yeah.
Okay, will you check my math again? Yeah. Okay, third person, come over here, check this math.
Right.
And another time I remember, I was on call. I was doing an ICU rotation. I was a pharmacist on call, so I get this page at midnight, and believe it or not, hospitals have systems in place where certain drugs you have to have a pharmacist's approval because either they're too expensive or too dangerous. Yeah. So I get a page, and it's a physician who says, I want to give my patient Xigris. Mm-hmm. And so this is a drug that was used in the ICU to help people who presented in septic shock. So, but there's really strict prescribing criteria. Yeah. So I go through and I do all the math and I do this and I do that. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, your patient doesn't meet the criteria. And my mom is a nurse. Mm-hmm. And this physician who I was saying no to had been an attending for like 30 years. Mm-hmm. And she's just like, I cannot believe that you just did that. You just said no to a physician who's got 30 years experience and you're like 3 months into the job. And I'm like, I'm sorry, the patient doesn't meet the criteria. Fast forward 3 years, the drug gets taken off of the market because it doesn't do anything, and the drug companies most likely falsified their findings to get it approved in the first place. That is what makes my blood boil, and mm-hmm. I know your blood boil, mm-hmm. is that pharmacists seem to be one of the only people within the system that go, hey guys, that drug data that you're talking about on the news doesn't make no sense. It doesn't make sense. You know, like rushing medications to market for like not really justifiable reasons doesn't make sense. Like we call it out when we see it. And it makes me so frustrated because I don't understand why people don't.
Makes me even more frustrated?
Please.
To that same end, the fact that pharmacists are typically not involved in the decision or the research or the press release or the publication or the review process.
Yeah.
Literally the people whose specialty it is to review drug information are left out of the drug information.
It's like, it is insane. You know, when I see people talking about this new drug is about to come to market and it's going to be this game-changing drug, and I go, ooh, I want to read the study. And like, I remember texting you and being like, are you watching the news? Like,
Am I missing something?
What are we missing?
I must be missing something.
And I'm like, okay, well, that failed to reach statistical significance, which means that it has no clinical significance. Wait, that failed to reach statistical significance, which means that it has no clinical significance.
Every single line
I
was
know.
not statistically significant. And I'm like, I know for a fact those stats don't make sense.
Yes.
And then you go read the bylines, and it's not a single PharmD on that panel.
I know. It's crazy. It is so crazy how we just get left out of the discussion. It is just, oh, man. Okay, so I love this question that you have here, and we are rapidly running out of time, and I want to be sure that we get our lightning round done. But why should all of the other clinicians who are listening here, the physicians, the nurses, the physician assistants, the nurse practitioners, the dietitians, the physical therapists, why do all of these different healthcare providers need to involve a pharmacist on their team?
All right, I'm going to give you 3 reasons, not just one. You get a bonus today.
I like it.
1, we are the drug experts. That is what we do. That is what we're trained to do. And that is really how we can contribute. You said it so well. You know, the physicians, amazing diagnosticians. Nurses, amazing caretakers, right? Pharmacists are there to, 1, bridge that gap between care and therapy. So let us, right? Allow us to be there on the team to help contribute and to help optimize that regimen. I am very much into holistic and integrative medicine. I'm obviously a functional medicine practitioner. I'm also dual licensed as a nutritionist in addition to being a pharmacist. But I think that there is an absolute role for proper use of medication in management.
100%.
And that should be coupled with other interventions. And your pharmacist, especially if they're trained in integrative medicine, if they're trained in herbalism, can really help you do it safely and optimize that person's health and reduce their risk of side effects and reduce their risk of nutrient-induced depletions. Why wouldn't you want that expert there?
I know.
So that you don't have to go back to school for another 4 years to learn what they know. Get them on the team. Collaborate with them and help them optimize your patient's health. You're going to be a hero. Number 2, we are also problem solvers. You got a problem? Call the pharmacist. We are trained, literally, somebody actually put this in great terms, so I'm gonna steal it here. But we are there to help alleviate the problem. You don't know what to give? Call us.
Yep.
You're not sure if this person can handle a particular formulation? Call us. You're not sure if a medication or an herbal or a nutrient is in needed? Call us. You need something compounded? Call us. We can help you figure out what it is and how to get it there.
Well, and it's not just the medication piece of it, but is your patient's potassium too high? Call us.
Their blood pressure won't come down no matter what you throw at them?
Call us. I know how to deal with that. Let's look at some magnesium stores.
Honestly, just having a rough day and need somebody to vent to? Call us.
I know. Yes, absolutely. I remember just being in back when I was practicing, I loved being a part of that multidisciplinary team. And the frustration came when I would tell people hey, here's what I think you should do. And they'd be like, and then something else would get written on the page. And I'm like, that's great if that's what you want to do. But let's have a discussion about why we're doing that. And so, pharmacists' voices need to be heard. Absolutely. Because we are there to help you figure out the whole picture. Right. It's not that you can't do it on your own, right, but it's just Do you want to make that more difficult, or do you just want to add another brain to the discussion?
And that brings me to the third reason to have the pharmacist on your team. Part of our training, I think, we start to look at things backwards. You know, because as a diagnostician, whether you're a nurse practitioner or a physician or a PA, as a diagnostician, you're sort of looking at the problem and then deciding on a solution. Pharmacists, because of the way that we're trained, we tend to be able to look at the solution and then backtrack to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It sort of allows a two-lens view. We get the diagnostic part, we get where you arrived at the solution, but we might be able to sort of see the problem and improve on it. So one of the things I used to do, you know, when I was in retail pharmacy, I would get a prescription and I would try to guess what the person had.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, look at the combination of things. Well, they have this, and usually they give that, so they must be giving this because this person has this contraindication. You try to sort of piece it together, right? And so you're backtracking to what's wrong. And then when I'd go to counsel them, I'd sort of quiz and see, did I get it right?
Right.
And it's, you know, I got it right most of the time. Pat on the back, self pat on the back there. But it's really, I say that example not so much to pat myself on the back, but to say that, to kind of illustrate how we think, right? And so for us, that's part of our problem solving strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what helps us start to say, okay, well, if this isn't working, or is there a way for me to make this even better?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge part of our training. Right. So whether you are on the healthcare team, whether you are a patient that's looking for just added support, usually we are more accessible. Usually we are, you know, available for consultations. And to be able to sort of look at a problem from both sides, I think helps you get to a solution faster. It's more open-minded. There's more, you know, even if you're not necessarily trained in integrative pharmacy, there's more of an understanding of the available options. And I think that really helps to optimize health. At the end of the day, whether you're going to use medication or not, whether you're going to want to layer on that added lifestyle piece, what you want is somebody who understands where you sit and can explain it to you in plain English, and can spend the time with you and have that conversation with you and help you understand where you're at. And I think the pharmacy education piece and the being able to sort of see it from all angles, I think that makes us really great partners in that.
I agree. Pharmacists do part of the training that I have been the most grateful for throughout my entire career is how well pharmacists are trained to make science easy to understand.
Yes.
That's the whole thing that we do. We can
taking this complex piece
and just making it
boiling
easy.
it down to a 15-second answer that I can tell you across a counter. That is a skill.
That's a super skill.
Yes.
I mean, like, and there's a reason that I've made a career. Oh, bug. There's a reason that I've made a career out of making science simple, and it's because that's what pharmacists are trained to do.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Exactly right.
You ready for some lightning round questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. What is your number one strength?
Taking complex science and boiling it down to a super easy to understand concept.
What is the thing you struggle with the most?
Staying neutral when I see inequalities in healthcare and people that are getting the wrong medical advice or the wrong health advice that is counterproductive to what they actually need.
Oh, amen. What keeps you up at night?
Seeing injustices in healthcare. But really, it actually does. A big passion of mine has become public health, because as much as I really, really, really enjoy working one-on-one with my clients and my patients, I realize I'm only one person and I only can get so far. And I can have a bazillion followers on Instagram. I can have a bazillion followers on Facebook. It's only going to get us so far. People need help in implementation, and people need a change in the system, not just the healthcare system, but the food system too. And
the education
system.
And the justice system.
All those things. But that's
things.
exactly right. Those systems are all intertwined and they all impact each other. People who don't have access to education and justice can't have access to health. And that's really important to understand. So what keeps me up at night is trying to figure out how I can network and collaborate with the right people to make sure that those injustices and those systemic issues get addressed.
Absolutely. Last but not least, God to you is
everything.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
I was raised Muslim, actually.
Were you?
I am Muslim. And it was a piece that I've always, we were a very liberal Muslim family, not very, we weren't super conservative. And I was always sort of allowed to explore and research. And at the end of the day, spirituality is a huge part of who I am. The Muslim and teachings are a big part of who I am. And I've sort of come to this place now where I'm trying to understand the difference between religion and spirituality, and how the teachings impact both.
Yeah. Well, Lara, it's been an honor to talk to you today. I guess I will say inshallah. And so thank you so much. If our listeners want to learn more about where they can engage with you, interact with you, or perhaps hire you as their personal pharmacist, where do they go to find out more information?
Come visit me on Instagram at Foodie Pharmacist.
Foodie Pharmacist?
2 F's, so pharmacist with an F. I am on there probably too much. Or come to my website, larazakaria.com.
Lara Zakaria, thank you so much for being on the Lindsey Elmore Show.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun.
We all put a lot on our bodies at work each day. Whether we sit for extended hours or type all day, putting our wrists at risk, or maybe we have to lug heavy boxes from one place to another, our body gets fatigued and worn out. And that's to say nothing about the mental stress that goes into working. I created a handout, and while I originally designed it exclusively for pharmacists, I realized that it can really benefit anyone in the workplace. All you have to do is take a quick break, 30 seconds, 1 minute every hour or two, and do a few simple stretches and breathing exercises to get you through your daily routine with ease. All you have to do to download the free handout is head to www.lindseyelmore.com/pharmacist. This will allow you to download a free guide for yoga in the workplace. Simple stretches, simple breathing techniques that help you control your nerves, maintain your body, and stay healthy at work. Head to www.lindseyelmore.com/pharmacist to download the free guide. Connie Grauds is a pharmacist by education, a natural medicine expert by training, and a healthcare advocate by day. Her inspired life and the inspiration of her many books has spanned 25 years of experience in the Amazonian jungles of Peru, where she has traveled with shamans, native healers, and indigenous people, where she learned that there is a life-giving spirit of passion and creativities that exist in the wild within each and every one of us. Connie and I met while I was a pharmacy student at UCSF. I attended one of her lectures on jungle medicine, where she talked about how to go from medicine to magic. I walked over to her afterwards because I was so touched by her presentation, and through a lot of tears, I conveyed to her that I had torn my ACL and that I was having a really hard time emotionally coping with it. And Connie asked me a question that I have continued to ask myself for many, many years, which is, why did I need this injury? Why did I need this injury? And that question was so profound, it stopped me in my tracks. And I said, I don't know. I don't know why I needed it. And every time since then that I have felt ill or sick or cut myself or whatever, I just step back and go, why did I need this injury? So welcome, Connie, my dear friend, to the Lindsey Elmore Show.
Thank you so very much. And you take me back from all these years. You know, I traveled to the Amazon 25 years ago, how this all came about.
I know.
As you, a pharmacist too. You know, I graduated from pharmacy school totally believing that I was going to lift bodies, save lives, and stamp out disease one pill at a time. So I filled prescriptions and filled prescriptions and refilled prescriptions and refilled prescriptions. And I came upon one day an emotional crisis where I said, if all of these magic silver bullets were curing everybody, that my lobby would have less people in it instead of the waiting lobby in the pharmacy had more people in it. So in these times of conundrums, when we have existential questions about what am I doing, who am I, what is my bigger calling, I went up to the lunchroom, of course, at lunch, and I'm paging through the pharmacy journal, and all the ads from Pfizer, Lilly, and Merck are all white and sanitary and so forth. And there in the centerfold of the magazine was a pharmacy continuing education trip to the Amazon. Macaws, toucans, jaguars. I said, that is life-giving. Let me go learn about pharmacy in the rainforest.
And so you go down and you write a book called Jungle Medicine based on your experience. And one of the most vivid stories that I remember from that book was where you kind of talked about, I guess, a trench foot where you had just wetness on your feet and you got bathed in herbs, and you, like when I first started to experience natural medicine, was like, yeah, right, thanks, guys. But what happened? Tell us that story.
So I am in the Amazon with the shaman. I don't know how to speak Spanish, so it's all kind of hand signals and so forth. And I'm helping him dig a medicinal plant garden. I thought that's the way to understand who these people are, be around them and see what they do, because we certainly didn't learn about the word shaman in pharmacy school or Kaiser, where I was working at the time. So in any event, I'm, as the days and weeks went by and I was digging, and rain, of course, it's the rainforest, so it's raining every day. One day I went to put my rubber boots on to go dig some more, and I noticed that, of course, my left great toe had jungle rot. And I was going to just go into my pharmacy bag because, of course, I had 3 kinds of antibiotics, 2 kinds of antibiotic cream, and so forth. When I said, why don't I take this to the shaman? Let's see what he would say about it. So I stumbled down to the shaman's hut with one of the guides who could translate for me. And I said, oh, my goodness, look, I have jungle rot on my toe. And can you help me? And he said, yes, we should take care of that right now because, there's no doctors around, not realizing that I had my pharmaceutical kit prepared. And he said, so we don't want to turn that into any kind of a systemic infection, so let's treat it now. So I sat back, and what he did was, of course, he collected 6 different plants and tree sap and flowers from various of the medicinal plants in the garden we were working on, and made a medicinal plant foot bath, which sounded really kind of Western, like a poultice, and all of these ingredients I looked up later were certainly antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory. And, and I said, fine. I said, sure, go for it. And in this process, as he soaked my foot so gently, I'm sitting back thinking, my goodness, the term attending physician, and how we don't have that now because we have 8-minute, 12-minute doctor's appointments. And here is this man just attending to this, obviously fungal foot, condition, easily treated, but he's caring for it as if it were life-threatening. And the next day we did the same, and the villagers came by, the curiosity of the white woman, with the shaman. And the villagers came by, what's going on? And of course I was somewhat dismissive because I said, it's just a little foot condition. It'll be fine. They kept coming back. And I realized the healing power of community, the healing power that these people were bringing to me, because if I had a bad foot and were a member of that tribe, there would be no food for the children. There would be no pots made if I were a potter. if I were, a warrior man, I would not be able to kill the deer for dinner tonight. And I realized it's important when someone in this community, when someone asks you how you are, it's you're answering for the community, And so, my goodness, we have the healing power of fresh green medicine. We have the healing power of community. And then, as this healing continued, I began to wonder, is this day number 2? Is it ever going to get better? So I thought, well, I'll give it another day. Is this just folly? I've got my antibiotics. I'm not too worried. And let's see what happens. And so at the end of day 3, he takes out his tobacco smoke and he blows them over my feet and both of my feet and my knees. And he pours all of this healing herbal bath over both of my feet and my knees. And I thought, doesn't this man know anatomy? It's my left great toe. How come it's happening up to my knees, both legs? Fine. I thought, fine. Tomorrow,
just go
if it's
with
not
it.
gone. Yeah, I'll just go with it. If it's not gone, I'll take my antibiotics. This was fun. But that night I had the most vivid dream. And I don't generally have profound dreams unless they're really meaningful. I'm just not much of a rememberer of my dreams. In any event, in the dream, all of a sudden this scary, bad, big, huge entity came toward me. I was sitting in a room all by myself in a chair, and the entity was coming toward me, and suddenly I had enough strength to stand up on my own 2 feet in that dream and fight off that entity. I didn't know what the dream meant. Who cares? Dreams, what are they anyway? The next morning, it's time to go put my rubber shoes on again and go down to see the shaman. And I looked, and my left great toe was healed. It was healed. And I thought to myself, pharmacist would say coincidence. All right, but let's go find the translator, go down to the shaman's hut and see what he says about the toe. So we go to the shaman's hut. Antonio, my toe is healed. And he said, yeah, so? And I said, how did you do that? And he said, well, remember, every morning you report to me your dreams. And so the first question I'm going to ask you is, what was your dream last night? I told him that suddenly I had enough strength to stand up on my own 2 feet and fight off that entity. And he said, you were dreaming what I was doing with the medicine. I was putting medicine and blowing spiritual tobacco smoke and prayers into both of your legs up to your knees, not just the toe, so that you could fight off the germ, which was the bad entity in your dream.
Absolutely.
And voila, I said, my goodness. So what's going on in this world is also part of the world of the invisible world of magic as well. So, that I never thought that I'd be speaking from this kind of languaging, but my experience, my own personal experience, and all of our experiences, our bodies, our stories, our experiences are truly remarkable, and they need to be shared with each and every person that we know, because it helps somebody. That's how you and I have become friends, and all of our listeners, viewers here. That's how we're going to become friends, because your body has a story as well, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And I think that people don't understand that pharmacognosy used to be widely taught within pharmacy schools. So pharmacognosy is the discipline of pharmacy where we look at medicines that are extracted from herbs or are spices, and all of that's been obliterated. It has all been obliterated, and pharmacy has become this absolutely just sterile environment where people expect us to behave like robots. It's a really, really difficult practice. And I had those same emotions that you did. Like, okay, I'm sitting here all day encouraging people to get off of medications, and people were not willing to make any lifestyle changes. And people now, I get labeled crazy all the dang time because I believe that there are emotional root causes of illness and emotional conditions that go into things. And just like your experience, I believe that spirits and beings and God and whatever you want to call it heals us. It heals us, but we have to invite it in. So how has all of your travels, all of your learning, your 25 years of going back to Peru, how has this transformed your understanding of health and wellness?
I'm going to preface that great question by explaining the most profound thing that happened on that first trip to the Amazon, second to the last day. A shaman appeared, and for over lunchtime, a little 10 minutes. And at that point, of course, I thought shamans were circus sideshows. I really was very irreverent. I didn't understand. I just didn't know. The shaman had his costume on, and he blew tobacco smoke, and it said, if anyone would like a real healing after dinner tonight, come to my hut at the end of the path. So I thought I was going to get the most bang for my expedition buck. So I stood in line and waited for my turn, thinking, oh, well, a sideshow, I'm leaving tomorrow anyway. What is this? I walked in, and the hut felt palpable with something I'd never felt before, if you want to call it energy, spirit, whatever word you want to use to describe it. I thought, you better get respectful right now. And so I sat on the stump. He started blowing his tobacco smoke, singing his songs. A few minutes later, he stopped and he said to the translator, tell Connie she's got a block in her neck. She needs to, when she gets home, see a doctor right away. A block in my neck? That's not something we learn in pharmacy school. We don't use the word energy. We don't use any of these. So I kind of ignored it. What does that mean? I didn't have a block in my neck, whatever that was. I got back to the United States. A month later, I had a huge growth. I had thyroid cancer. I became very curious about who this man that I had never met before knew more about my body than I did or my physician did. That became the real clincher for me about learning about the world of the invisible, which not only means invisible help for healing, but the invisible function of our bodies as well. Often Western medicine would say there's no such thing as energy medicine. Well, how do we take an EKG and an EEG if we are not energy beings? So indeed, on the scientific level, we are interacting with everything in this universe, which is energy, by its many names. Call it God, call it spirit, call it whatever. Your belief and language doesn't matter. We are affected by it. So whether it is mind, body, spirit, these shamans make no difference. When they see a person right away, they do not differentiate mind, body, spirit. They see the whole thing. And they'll often say many things. You need to leave your job, and here's the herb you need for your arm. So, they see the whole thing. Your arm isn't going to heal till you leave the job, and et cetera, et cetera. So the stories come out of the shaman from what we would call emotional perspective, psychological perspective, and our right relationship. That's what this whole discussion is about. Our right relationship here, our right relationship with our family, ourselves, our jobs, our community, our earth. And so it's so important to not just think that the little magic silver bullet is going to be the answer. Now, I must say that Western medicine has saved my life. My thyroid cancer was taken care of, and the thyroid medication I must take every day, I bless it and take it. But the point of the matter is I returned to the jungle after I recovered from that surgery because I said, there's deeper healing, deeper energy that I need from the Amazon, the greatest expression of life on earth. And I needed more wholeness in my body, not just this thing taken care of.
Well, that's the problem with most allopathic medicines is there's never the question of why. Why does this exist in you? Why did you have thyroid cancer? As you were talking, I don't know what came over me, but I had an awareness and a knowing that I've never known until just now. When you asked me years ago, why did you need to tear your ACL? Well, the knees are a part of the root chakra system. So it's the grounded earth element. And I tore my ACL within 6 months of leaving my home where I had lived my entire life. And so in some way, tearing my ACL grounded me in San Francisco. It grounded me because my mother begged me to come back to my home state of Alabama. And she's like, you've got to get your surgery here. You've got to do this. And I was like, no, Mom, I live here. Like, I have to be seeing a surgeon where I can have follow-up, and I need physical therapy out here. Like, I need a care network in this new spot. And I genuinely think that in some ways that was a blessing to ground me and give me that care. And I agree with you. You know, I told you I went in search of a shaman, and it was in Africa, and it was in Zambia, where in Africa I had the opportunity to help train the continent's first ever clinical pharmacists. And while I was there, I said, I want to go see this shaman, because in Zambia, there are more registered shamans that are participants in the National Shamanic Association than there are licensed pharmacists. And shamans in Zambia can actually prescribe. They have license to prescribe all medications. So they can blend East and West. And I remember she told me, because I was like, I'm here for a healing. They thought I was there for academic purposes. And I was like, no, I'm here because I want to see what you do. And the husband says, well, you don't want to work with me. My wife is a way better shaman than I am. It's just I'm the man, so I'm in charge. So I'm the one with the leadership position. And so I said, okay, I'll work with your wife. And they're all speaking in Nyanja, and so I have absolutely no clue what's being said. And afterwards, my colleague, another pharmacist, said, do you know what she said when you asked if you could go and have a healing? And I said, yeah, I want to know what she said. And he said that she said, I will do it, but the spirits will be very surprised to see her, because she had never worked on a white person before. And that was a huge honor. That took me, and I went, wow, that is utmost respect. And while I was coming out of it, afterwards, her husband steps out and says, I want you to know that the only reason we did that for her was because we could tell she wasn't here for sport. I was there out of a genuine desire to understand, how is it that medications have evolved so rapidly to be the only treatment that is allowed, but yet we've had healing traditions dating back thousands and thousands of years. And so now that you've spent so much time learning, how do you train another generation to go, there's more to life than just taking medications?
Interestingly, I just got back from the Amazon with an Ohio Northern Pharmacy School group of pharmacy students who have been exposed only to Western medicine and the Western paradigm. And so as they were in the jungle, seeing the shaman, seeing how the villagers live, seeing how they're healed, seeing the very fact that they cannot afford pharmaceuticals, yet the life expectancy in Peru is only 2 years less than ours. Wow. It can't be, fish and melons can't be all bad. In other words, they're eating from the land. They're living in harmony. You know, they first use the herbs and so forth. Then the shaman, such as the one who had diagnosed my thyroid cancer, said, go see a doctor. In other words, they have no problem, the shamans, handing off to a better expert. We in the West, who think that our paradigm is the only paradigm in the world that's of any value, we rarely, if ever, say, go see a shaman.
Right. A friend of mine, her daughter unfortunately suffered from her second seizure, and they were asking me, so they called me from the emergency room, and they're like, they're wanting to give her this drug, and they're wanting to this, and they're wanting to that. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? So I gave them my immediate advice about the medications and the this and the that. But then the very next day, I call them and I say, hey, you really need to work. We need to get at the spiritual root cause of this. And that is where I think Western medicine fails us, is we never ask, why did this occur? And what is the root cause of it?
Indeed. And as I came back from the Amazon 25 years ago, had my thyroid cancer surgery, of course, that's the throat chakra. Connie, speak about your truth. Speak your truth. I left conventional medicine, left pharmacy, and started the Association of Natural Medicine Pharmacists. The best medicine is all the medicine when used appropriately. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, we need to know the root cause. We need to be in harmony with our the community, our flora and fauna around us. And then when things get really bad, of course, we need surgery and we need medication. But you don't start there unless it's an emergency and you're in the ambulance. You don't start there. You start, on the self-healing, natural ways. And as you started the show here today, pharmacy medicine originally had to be animal, vegetable, mineral.
That's all we had.
That's all we had. We didn't have blockbuster drugs such as Tagamet, Valium, and Prozac. We didn't have that. And when we look at the world, the World Health Organization, says that 80% of the world still uses herbs as their primary form of treatment because they cannot afford big pharma. Well, you look around, they are not dropping over at the age 15. They are not, like I said, Peru's life expectancy is only 2 years less, and 70% of Peru is the jungles, the wilds. And so we look at these other countries, where homeopathy is important and where herbs are important, and we look at the life expectancy, and we have to scratch our heads and say, there must be more than one way to heal. Additionally, Western medicine in these modern times, Western medicine and pharmacy is all about procedures, not patient.
Yes.
The shaman and alternative medicines, acupuncture, chiropractic is about adjusting the patient. Getting you in alignment with you, and then you'll heal. Like the cut in your hand will heal up if all the environment is right. It will heal itself.
Absolutely. Yes. There's no time to practice good medicine in the way that our models are set up. And increasingly, Western medicine models are becoming scientific totalitarianism, where it's just, you got to follow the guidelines. You got to follow the guidelines. And it's like, well, wait, when did one size fits all medicine ever work? It has never worked, and I don't think it will ever work. And so we need to get back to where we trust our bodies and that we have the innate ability to heal. Working with you changed my life because it opened my eyes that, wow, there's a lot of different concepts of what wellness is. And then when I first started going to acupuncture, my life changed even more, where I realized, like, whoa, there's a whole system that is basically the opposite of every bit of advice that we are given in Western medicine. I'm also fascinated to know about your healthcare advocacy, because one of the things that I remember when we first met, it was like, yeah, she's a shaman who practices pharmacy in the hospital. And I was like, wait, what? And so how did you marry these two worlds where you said, okay, I am a pharmacist, I have this skill set, but I also am a shaman, and how do I bring those two things together?
Well, jokingly at a conference during the Q&A section, such as now, I said, well, maybe there's a new career called a shamanicist.
Oh, I love that.
Well, the point is, it's the shamans are healers of the sick and keepers of the forest. So you are a shaman in the sense of you could and have used pharmacy, Western medicine, healers of the sick, alternative medicine, and so forth, give advice or worked in or would step up for family or worked in a pharmacy, so on and so forth. And keepers of the forest in the largest sense. Shamans are also in charge of the harmony of the village with the flora and the fauna and the forest around them. They are to inspire and harmonize. And when we are inspired and harmonized in our surrounds, we're healthy. We are healthier. So that's also by many words. You could describe this principle, but it's intuitive. Anyone would understand it. Healers of the sick and also keepers of the forest, the harmony of all that there is. So wherever I'm called, sometimes it's healthcare advocacy, and I'm in the doctor's offices and in Stanford Hospital, for example, and so forth, making sure that they do care about the patient and that the procedures are appropriate, of course, because healthcare is in need of more patient focus, as we discussed, a few moments ago. So that's what I do for the harmony and inspiration aspect of it. I have a wonderful Our Bodies, Our Stories, our jungle juju writing experience where let's get together on Zoom and then we can dig deep into our souls and hearts and just see what flows to the top. Now, I'm an author of many books, 3, 4, 5 books, some on the Amazon, some principles that you can live by here in the West and so forth. And more importantly, is writing is a great tool to allow each and every one of us to simply go deep within and say your deepest secrets. And so that's my inspirational piece, because the individual must be connected with themselves first. We have to have harmony with ourselves first before we can have harmony with our family and our community and the globe at large. And so getting that out, as I said, the thyroid chakra, it's interesting, that thyroid cancer, the throat chakra, now speak your truth.
Yes.
So I have found wonderfully, because I've been speaking my truth, universities put me on staff. All kinds of other things have happened because people want this, not because I'm important in ego. What I'm saying is people want a grounded person such as you and all of the great inspiring work that you do, and myself as well, is to be the grounded, trusted person in the rational world who also helps pull in from the world of energy and spirit and greater collaboration around you. But first of all, it has to be with yourself. So join me in Jungle Juju wild writing classes and learn more about yourself by getting those stories out, just like yours that you shared at the onset here.
Well, and getting asking yourself your deepest, darkest secrets is powerful medicine. And Connie has been kind enough to offer all of our listeners here today 20% off of the writing course. So if you want to do the Jungle Juju writing course, head to www.junglejujuconniegrouds.com and then just let Connie know that you are a listener of the Lindsey Elmore Show, and she will be happy to take you in and inspire you to get started writing your whole story.
And look online, you'll see there's a free Wild Writing Jam session on July 11th. So when you look online, you can easily join and see what this is all about July 11th and see what it's like to just open your heart and get to know yourself and speak your truth.
Well, I didn't prepare you for this, but I'm wondering if you will just go with it. The first time I heard you speak, you sang a prayer, and it brings tears to my eyes even just to think about it now. So would you sing for us as we go?
Let's do that. This is the wonderful healing plant called mukura. It's a feminine female energy spirit that cleanses and purifies. Let's join in together in thought. Mukurita, 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 mukurita. Mukurita, 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 mukurita. Mukurita, 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 mukurita. Thank you, listeners and viewers, for all that you are and all that you do. May you be blessed and your highest intention be met. May it be so.
Connie, you've been just a huge blessing in my life, and I am so glad that God put us in each other's pathways, and that the lessons that you taught me so many years ago still continue to bring influence on my life. And I know that so many other people could say the exact same thing about you. And I am looking forward to the day when we are all allowed to travel again, and Connie and I are going to take a group of you listeners to the jungle, and we are going to practice yoga, sing songs, care for the forest, and learn from traditional shamanic healers. So, Connie Grauds, thank you.
Let's do it. Thank you, Lindsey. Thank you.
The Lindsey Elmore Show is written and produced by me, Lindsey Elmore. Show segments are produced by Sue Procco and Kelsey Lorman. Production design, sound design, and editing is by Jive Media. If you have a question about this or any other episode of the podcast, send us an email to hello@lindseyelmoreshow.com. And hey, since you're still here, take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And while you're at it, go over and follow us on Instagram @Lindsey Elmore Show. This helps us bring the pod to more people.